The music you just heard, Let the Mystery Be, has a lot of meaning for me because I'm not real big on having all the answers. I tend to make plans, but then just end up going along with whatever is actually happening. That doesn't always work, but sometimes it can be surprising. My life, for instance, has been shaped by a number of unplanned events. And one of them was a news feature that I saw many years ago on 60 Minutes. The story was about a public school teacher who was getting very worried because her students were not learning. They were dropping out, getting involved in drugs and gangs, getting pregnant. She taught in one of the worst parts of Chicago, one of the poorest of neighborhoods. And she figured that a good education could make a difference for these kids, but that certainly was not what they were getting. She thought about some of the things that she was pretty sure would make a positive difference, but every time she tried to make some changes, she was blocked by the administration. She felt powerless. Classes at that point often had over 30 kids in a room, sometimes over 40. School supplies were low, not enough books. The kids were unruly and disruptive in class. Dropouts were the norm. And the kids who did graduate seldom went on to any sort of higher education. And sometimes they could often barely read. She went to the school board to try some reforms, no dice. She tried the teachers union. They couldn't help. She wrote articles for a local paper and petitioned city council. Nothing worked. Finally, this teacher got so frustrated with the system that she quit her job and started a private school in her own home in the very neighborhood of the school where she used to teach. Like I said, one of the worst in the city. But she figured, the kids that lived there were the kids who needed help the most. It was a huge gamble. Inner city parents do not have a lot of extra cash to finance a private school, and not many were willing to take the chance. Her income dropped to almost nothing, but she persevered because she was driven. She was convinced that these kids could excel, and she was willing to put herself on the line to prove it. One of her first rules was that there should never be more than 20 kids to a teacher, preferably even less. So she started out with only 20 kids in a one-room schoolhouse, her living room. And it was a struggle to get that many students. But then another teacher joined her, and a couple more, and the students followed, and so it grew, still teaching out of her home in a renovated garage. By the time the story broke on 60 Minutes, she had purchased the house next door and had converted it to more classrooms. She was very strict and seemed to have very high standards. And I remember thinking at the time, maybe I would not have liked her as a teacher, because I always preferred the teachers that were very easygoing. But she was getting results, very good ones. So I paid attention to what she was doing. The main thing I noticed was respect. Students were required to give teachers respect, but the teachers were also required to give the students respect. And she insisted that the kids treat each other with respect, no exceptions. Students had to be appropriately dressed, no sexy clothes, nothing with street gang connotations. Anything flashy or expensive was discouraged. They were expected to sit upright at their desks, feet flat on the floor. And when you saw the picture of the room with the kids, they were paying attention. They were engaged in the classroom. She taught not just the basics, but also decorum and life lessons. Teachers spent a lot of time with each individual student, and she encouraged students to help each other learn. There was a whole segment on the older students teaching the younger kids, and I noted the pride and self-respect that those students seemed to feel, knowing that they could make a difference for the younger ones. That teacher earned my respect because she cared so deeply and really put herself out there. She taught all the academics and expected her students to excel. But even more important, she taught those kids self-respect and love of learning. It worked. The students adored her and loved the school, and in one of the worst neighborhoods with drugs and gangs and violence all around them, these students were going way beyond what was expected of them in a regular school. They were assigned a fairly high amount of homework, and she expected them to understand the lessons, not just pass the tests. By the time the 60-minute story broke, it was not unknown for her students to be getting full scholarships to very good colleges. Remember, these were kids who often came from broken families and neighborhoods with the worst circumstances. Often they would be the first in their families to even get a high school degree. But here, many of them were going on to professions like law and medicine and science and engineering. But it was not all sweetness and roses. Not everyone understood what she was doing. 60 Minutes told the story of one single mother who had enrolled her son in the school but ended up withdrawing him. Troubled, the teacher went to find out why. The mother said she didn't like how her son had changed, that he spent time after school inside doing his homework, and he was always reading a book rather than playing outside with his friends. It just wasn't natural, she figured. The teacher pleaded with the mother to let her son stay in school because he was doing so well. But the mother was adamant, and she withdrew her child. A year later, that same mother returned, begging them to take her son back into class. But everything was full. They had no room for him. In order to let him back in, they would have had to have kicked out some other child. And there was already a very long waiting list of kids that wanted to get in. I don't know what to think about that mother. I don't know her situation. I suspect she loved her son very much and simply did not realize the consequences of her actions. I'll bet she'd never experienced education that worked, that homework was foreign to her. I suspect she did not have a high respect for books or book learning either. But something had changed her mind. I don't know what. Did her son become involved in a gang? Did his grades drop back in public school? Did he even finish high school? Did the small amount of time he spent in that private school give him a love of learning that carried with him? I often wonder what happened to that kid. That news story on 60 Minutes was about 50 years ago. Sadly, I don't remember any of the names of the teacher or the school. I never heard anything more about it. But that story had a huge impact on my thinking, because I began to believe that humans, if given the right foundation and half a chance, humans can do marvelous things no matter what their beginnings. I am now firmly convinced that we are much less limited than circumstances might dictate. Anyone can achieve if given the chance and the right tools. I came to believe it is our job as a society to see to it that folks get the support they need, even when, especially when, everyone says it's hopeless. I think about that school from time to time. I wonder if it's still going. I think about the lives it changed, the individuals who were deeply affected, the families it impacted. And I'm a bit amazed. That teacher went against all the perceived wisdom of her time. Everyone said that inner city kids simply could not make the grade. Everyone said there were too many disadvantages to be overcome. Yet she persevered. Why am I telling you this story about a teacher whose name I do not remember and a school that may no longer exist? Why am I sharing this story with you? Because I'm selfish. This story has meant a great deal to me over the years. And before I started writing this service, I'd never shared it with anyone. But as I wrote, I realized I really wanted to share it with you. You all are probably light years ahead of me. You probably are already aware that people can overcome great odds, but I honestly did not know that. I look at that teacher with more than a bit of awe. Look at what she did. Out of nothing but a determination to make things better for the kids, she created a safe place, a place that invited the best in the students. Yet, if truth be told, she just took one step at a time, trying to do what was the best that she knew. In my life, I've known several people who have done just that, their best. Maybe the results have not been as spectacular. They won't end up on 60 Minutes, but still taking just one step at a time, doing the best you can, trying to do what is right. I look at parents who have no special magic, but who have raised children who are loving and kind. I look at people who created small businesses where the employees are treated with respect and encouraged to excel. And I do see teachers in public schools who, despite all the odds, turn out students who love to learn. And lately, I look at friends who've gone out of their way, especially during this pandemic, to help one another with grocery pickups and rides to doctor's appointments. It occurs to me another thing was changed by that story for me. My attitude about people. I used to be impressed by flashy personalities, by people who make an entrance. But partly because of that story, what I value now is kindness and caring, thoughtfulness and ethical actions, people who live their values. And I believe in folks who buck the odds to do their darndest to make their little corner of the world a better place. I think there are a lot of them, a lot of us. We just don't always hear about it. Ordinarily, we wouldn't hear about a teacher who believed that inner city kids were smart enough to go to Yale. So she started a private school that proved it. A doctor who believed that even people in war-torn and poverty-stricken countries should have health care. So he gathered up other like-minded doctors and started up Doctors Without Borders. A woman back in 1684 who believed that God was too good to damn his own children, and thus worked to shape a movement that later became known as the Universalist Church. One person can make a difference. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. I forget who said that. I think it might have been Jane Goodall. I'm not sure. But whoever said that is right. You and I, we are each just one person who can make a difference. We can make a difference, and we do. That smile you shared with the person at the counter in the store where you buy your groceries. That cat or dog you gave a home to. The recycling that you automatically do, it makes a difference. Every small bit of thoughtfulness matters. Every tiny bit of kindness makes a difference. It brightens up your corner of the world and makes things better for both you and those around you. Like the teacher in the story, you too have the power to make this world a little better. May we search for ways to use our gifts to be together in love and peace. So be it.